Good evening, guests. This is Dave Walker at the Beta SMB Institute, and I am delighted. This is not the last stop of the day. We have a great session coming up on Clubhouse at 8:15 Central Time, but this is a wonderful, wonderful way to kind of sort of end the day for me. These are some of my favorite people in the business to small business space because they actually are the voices of small business. I call them the big voices to small business. And I'd like to welcome this esteemed panel and kind of pass the baton around as we talk about small businesses, but I certainly want to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves. So I will start because I never start with John Lawson, and we all agree that John is the hippest man in the room right now. So John Lawson, welcome.
That's a low bar.
That's a low bar. Oh my gosh. What's up, guys? My name is John Lawson, and basically I help small business be more productive with e-commerce and all things around online selling and digital marketing.
You are the man at that too. And let's go to Barry Maltz, who we all agree looks absolutely fabulous, having lived in Arizona now for 6 whole months. And he looks just like, you should be playing for the Diamondbacks, man. You're looking great.
Listen, I'm Jewish. I can't play for the Diamondbacks. You know that. I just have none of that talent. I'm Barry Maltz. I'm a small business expert. I help small business owners get unstuck. And it's just so great to be back with you, Dave. And really, I just admire every single person on this panel. So thanks for including me.
Great to have you. Melinda Emerson, my dear friend.
Hey, everybody. I'm Melinda Emerson, the small biz lady. And I like to say I'm the queen of the 95 percenters, the 95% of businesses that will never gross over $1 million in revenue. But those guys are mainstream business owners and they need help. And my mission is to end small business failure. And we do that every day on succeedasyourownboss.com.
Awesome. Steve Strauss, USA Today in the house.
Hey, everybody. Great to see all my friends and to be with Dave and another one of your great events. I am the small business columnist for USA Today and a content creator and author. I've got a new book coming out in the fall. I think Melinda does as well. So we're going up against each other. And
me too. I have one coming out too, Steve. So
oh, nice. Anyone else?
And actually, the best book coming out is by Pamela Slim. Pamela, welcome.
Not the best, see, because I'm Pamela Slim here in Mesa, Arizona. I'm the co-founder of the Main Street Learning Lab. And I'm here all about ecosystem development, so partnerships, so we can actually help each other with all of us that have books coming out in the fall, because we know that's the way that it works. You know, all of us work together often, you know, in connecting our communities. And a lot of what I see in the work I do at the Main Street Learning Lab is helping to build partnerships with government, nonprofits, for-profits, small business owners. And we were just chatting before in the discussion, we've actually seen in our Main Street 6 new restaurants that have opened up just in this past 3 months. And there's huge, amazing energy that's coming from, of course, a really bleak time. So I bring a lot of optimism.
Terrific. Brian Moran.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Brian Moran, CEO of Small Business Edge and Brian Moran and Associates. I spent probably a little under 25 years in corporate America, publishing magazines and newspapers for business owners. I may be the only person in America that's worked at the Wall Street Journal, Inc., Entrepreneur, and Success magazines. So I got that going for me. And Steve, I never applied to USA Today, but that would have been my 5th choice. To get some experience there. What we do now is we do 2 things. We help business owners run better companies. We help marketers better target the SMB space.
Awesome. Ivana Taylor.
Hey, everyone. It's so good to see you, Dave. Thanks for having us. It's a great event. I've enjoyed all the presentations. I'm Ivana Taylor. I'm the publisher of DIYmarketers.com, where we help small business owners do more marketing for less money. No, yes, $17 a day, people. That's how we get it done. Tools, tips, and strategies help you get more customers, keep customers, and make more money.
Awesome. Anita Campbell.
Hey, Anita Campbell here. I'm the publisher of Small Business Trends, cat lover also, as you can probably tell. We had a visit from our working cat. But we've been publishing for over 17 years now. I can barely believe it, all for the small business market. And because of that and the huge market readership that we have a really good pulse on small business owners, what they're interested in, what they think about, what are top issues, and so on. So glad to be here. Thanks, Dave. Thanks. Good to see everyone.
And bring it home, Mr. Ray.
Hey, Dave, nice to be here. Thanks for having me. And again, kudos to you for all the hard work you've been doing. I was going through the Wova platform and massive amount of content that you put together. So thank you for the work you do. Ramon Ray, founder of smarthustle.com. And what we do all day long is to inspire and educate small business owners to start and grow successful businesses. Happy to be here. Thanks.
You guys represent an audience in the many millions between all of you of small business. And my first question, which, you know, we can pass the talking stick like good kids in second grade around the circle, but how are small business doing today, right now? Evana, why don't you start?
I can tell you, inside of my client base and my community, I've had a lot of small businesses that just took a hit. And, you know, we talk a lot about restaurants and those types of people, but I am talking about financial planners, attorneys, hairstylists, you know, your regular, I see Melinda nodding, you got it, right? We all know these people, our favorite businesses, and they took the hit. They took it hard. I didn't even mention consultants and freelancers, right? Because it was a trickle down effect, Dave, right? Everything got shut down and then everyone else started losing business. But the good news is that I have seen some of these businesses not just bounce back, but I have seen them like actually go above and beyond. A few of the people in my client base, a few of the people in my audience really embrace technology. Like if they were sort of going around the edges, like maybe I'll try Zoom, maybe I won't. Like I had to teach them how to use Zoom, right? Mm-hmm. Now they are pros. I've got clients who haven't been in the office, who are doing creative things, servicing, and now actually most of them are getting more business now than they have in the past because they've been able to expand their audience, expand their client base beyond what they've been used to. So that's not to say that other folks are not struggling. I really just want to bring home the point that people have been shifting, changing, being creative, and really made the best out of a really bad situation.
Terrific. Barry, how about you?
You know, I'm predicting a new roaring 20s. I think there's a lot of money that's really pent up. People haven't had a chance to spend it. And I think over the next couple of years, we're really going to see a lot of spending and really a lot of prosperity for small business owners. Now, it may not make up for what happened over the last year and a half, but I think we can all look forward to some really, really great times because in my opinion, a lot of small business owners are involved. They brought on secondary and tertiary revenue streams, and I think those streams will still stay. So I think they're going to be profitable going forward. So I'm real positive about it.
So Steve, you can't steal that as a headline for your next column. The roaring 20s are here. Steve, from your perspective, what are you seeing?
So for me, what I've seen is it depends on what kind of business people have been in, right? As we all know, retail did, take an incredible hit. That said, online businesses, e-commerce, those kind of businesses did fantastic. They had, a lot of them had boom years. So it was really feast or famine. What I'm noticing happening is though, like the content I create, the content that my editors want, the content that's getting clicks is about growing your business. It's about digital marketing. So everyone's really, of course, has looked at the digital marketing, but that's still, from what I see, where everything is going. So a conference like this that you're putting on, Dave, is just so key for what people are looking to do. I'm like Barry, very bullish, very optimistic. I'm sure everyone on this panel probably feels the same way. The people I talk to, the people I know, the small businesses, cautiously optimistic. So there is a little dichotomy there. Of course, everybody wants to grow, and my book is about how to grow your business, but
shameless
not
plug.
Quite ready, not quite there yet.
No, terrific. John, you work with a lot of small businesses, particularly on the topic of technology. how are small businesses feeling about technology right now, as many have been in some ways forced to adapt, forced to adopt over the course of the last year? How are they feeling about it?
Well, let's think about this number, man. $861 billion was spent online in 2020. That's a 44% growth year over year. So what happened in e-commerce is the thing that we were talking about that would happen in 3 to 5 years ended up happening in just 1 freaking year. And do you think people are going back to running out to the store for some toilet paper? I doubt it. So I really see that there's a lot of opportunity here for small businesses. A lot of them had taken their time. They're like, one day we'll get around to the e-commerce portion, or we have this, site that's been built in 1980 and it's been serving us. You can get our, menu there. No, what's happening is they're starting to embrace technology. These kind of digital transactions are starting to take root. And I even went to my favorite restaurant after getting my second shot. Yes, I've been vaccinated. Leave me alone. Okay. So I had that happen. And I get in there and I'm waiting for the server to come and give me the menu. She comes over with no menu. I'm looking at her. She's like, you scan the bar on the table. I scan the barcode on the table. The menu pops up as if it was in 3D. So I'm saying, even if a small local restaurant can embrace these kind of AR technologies, augmented reality technology, there's so much going on right now. It's extremely exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. Melinda, is it good news for everybody right now in small business, do you think?
It's not. I mean, I'm glad to hear that there's so much growth and there's people that are, doing gangbusters, but I want to remind everybody that 40% of African-American businesses were out of business as of May of last year. So there are still a group of people that are still trying to understand their digital pivot. And you guys all know it's a lot more complicated to sell online. It's not just about throwing up a website and having a blog. You do have to know how to buy ads. You do have to know what platform to buy them on. You do have to figure all this stuff out. You got chat bots, it's complicated now. And so I feel like there's still a learning curve out there. And one of the things that we've done over my business, I actually created Small Biz Lady University, where I'm actually teaching people how to sell online, how to use email marketing effectively, because people still don't know. And so I definitely think people who were already online, they won in 2020. Those were the people who were already ready, but people who were still trying to steer the ship, some of those people, it's still not going in the right direction. They're still trying and they're struggling because of just cash flow issues. And we all know the PPP loan stuff was a disaster when you consider it was based on employment, how many employees you had. And a lot of small business owners, if they have any, they're contractors. So they couldn't claim any of these people they pay every month. So I think it is important for all of us to not get carried away in what the opportunity is. There's always opportunity, right? If you build a better mousetrap, the world will be the path to your door every day. But we can't forget about the people who we've already lost. Like the dry cleaner in my neighborhood went out of business. The dentist up the street went out of business. This is not, everybody didn't win in 2020, and some people weren't able to hang on. So I think there's still a need for education. There's still a need for, free resources and grants and training and all this kind of stuff. I think that stuff is still needed, especially for the African-American and many women entrepreneurs that are out there.
Anita, build on that. Your whole, frankly, value to the small business community is it's so rich in education and information. Do you see that there's really a much higher demand for it from the small businesses as really we progress into a recovery?
Absolutely. And so what we're seeing is it's not just the businesses that are selling online, it's also businesses that you wouldn't think of that are very interested in different kinds of solutions. Let me give you an example. So Melinda mentioned a dentist. Well, there are dentists that have changed the way they have done things because they're much more proactive with personal protective equipment now. And they never really realized how much they were at risk before. But what they have found is that they and their employees are much better prepared and dealing with things, and they will never go back to the way things were before. Also, their clients are expecting things differently as well. They're expecting to see the dentist with the full clear plastic face mask over them and with like scrubs, made out of the parachute material and, as opposed to the way you used to see them, just a year and a half ago, So I think we're seeing that. I think there's also what we've seen from our data is a lot of interest in being proactive when it comes to financial and planning issues. So there's a lot of interest in disaster planning and preparedness because this really caught a lot of small businesses flat-footed, having to suddenly have people working remotely. And, I think a lot of small businesses love it now, but they had to scramble, really. And they weren't prepared for it. Also, financial planning. We saw a lot of small businesses that were just they cut their finances too close to the bone. I think the national statistic is that most small businesses only have about 2 weeks of expenses on hand. That's just stunning. And so we're seeing a lot of interest in that type of content. People are very much interested in protecting themselves better going forward.
Dave, I think one of the struggles that's going to come up with small business owners is that I think a lot of employees are not going to want to go back to the office.
Right.
I think it used to be that it was a privilege to be able to work from home. Now I really think it's a right. So unless you're a retail store, there's going to be a struggle between the small business owner and the employee. And right now it looks like the employee is going to win because it's hard to find great people.
Huge trend on TikTok right now are people who are basically talking about the callback and they're not happy, to say the least. So Pamela, down at street level, I haven't gotten to you yet, right? Okay. So down at street level, Main Street Learning Labs, building on what Anita is saying, education down right there at that super street level that you work from in your small community. What are small businesses saying they need?
It is really, I see kind of a thread between what Melinda was talking about, what Anita and what a lot of folks are talking about. To me, where we have seen great success is with collaborations, partnerships, where we were talking earlier about a collaboration like Verizon did with LISC. LISC is a nonprofit organization within our own Main Street area, which is classified technically as being a low income area, right? That can have certain funds that are available for Opportunity Hub investing. But because of those investments and partnerships through COVID, we had millions of dollars that were specifically allocated with hands-on, like person to person helping to fill out applications for us, especially for our Latinx business owners, for our Black business owners, for our Native American business owners. And so it was through those partnerships and through those relationships that a lot of the funding happens. And I think about, like Melinda, the strong relationship that you have with your community. So many folks we know, certainly a lot of the work we do in being community builders and being connected to communities, that is really essential to have these relationships and to have these embedded kinds of partnerships where I know a lot of what I'll do is to be the go-to person between that business owner, maybe a nonprofit partner, virtual resources, sometimes referring people to the kind of resources that we have online. The difference that I see in kind of the openness of business owners on Main Street is they recognize the importance now of realizing that they do need to be partnering more. Folks who may have seen the advertisements before for nonprofits saying, we'll help you with your business. And they're like, yeah, you'll never do anything. All of a sudden the word on the street is, wait a minute, we saw a lot of change happening when there was partnership and collaboration. And a lot of it, I just sent a text today to our coffee shop down the street and I said, hey, SBA just came out with a restaurant relief fund. Jared, who's a Native American business owner, have you access that? And he said, yep, I got it. I work with Ryan. I have my application in already. And
Wow.
so the new businesses that we have coming in, they're actually all people of color owned businesses. And that's not by accident. That's been work that a lot of us have been doing for years to build those relationships and to build the connections. And I think that's something that a lot of companies, like the Beta SMB participants, can really take advantage of, in leveraging the kind of relationships and building partnerships.
Okay, so before I ask Ramon this question, I want each of you to think about and write down a question that you have for either the panel as a whole or one particular panelist. Okay, so Ramon's going to answer my question, and at the end of that, then I'm going to go around and I'm going to tap each of you and you say, okay, Steve, what's your question? And you can either direct it at Barry or you can direct it to the whole panel. Doesn't matter, but let's just keep this conversation really crowdsourced here from all of you here. So Ramon, my question to you, my friend, is it seems like, and I do think you are the right guy to answer this because you work so much in the branding and the kind of the identification of an entrepreneur, the self-identification of an entrepreneur. Do you think that the many small businesses that had to pivot, to adjust, to change basically over this past year, do they understand what their new brand identity is yet? Are they whether it's a new offering or they had to restart in a completely different business in a completely different location? Is there, do you think, kind of a pent-up demand for new identities in the small business community? Does that question make sense?
It makes sense. I think there could be, David, there could be. But I think I was on a webinar with SCORE a few weeks ago, and there are 4,000 people registered for that event. Maybe half were on there live, thousands of people. I got bombarded with emails. And my point being for that answer, David, is that I think that it's amazing still the big demarcation of small businesses. It's like when a hurricane hits and 2 months after, everybody has a different story. Hearing from John talk about the booming of e-commerce, hearing about Melinda saying, wait a minute here, it's bad news for many. That's what a hurricane's like. Hurricane, you got 20% of guys breaking into the store, getting rich, right? They filling up gases and doing well. The other 20% not eating any food. The other 20% is just, putting their house up with boards. So that's what I think regarding brand identity, David. I think that it's just the small business ecosystem is so big. Every page you turn, you hear a different story. And the SCORE was an example of that. Yes, it's obvious. We know that small businesses are hurting for sure. But on that webinar, as I was bombarded, it was almost like people, the same old questions that we would have had pre-pandemic. How do I start? Wait, stop. How do you spell LLC again? S-Corp. What's that? I'm like, go read Melinda's book. I mean, it's just, the same questions that we've got pre-pandemic. So I think that there's just gulf between those of us on here, us ballers. We know these things. We're a bit more schooled, and I say it in a humble way, but there's so many. Who said that? Again, Melinda, 95%. Who said that, the part about small businesses still don't know. So, yeah. Which is why we will all still be in business.
Well, listen, our mutual friend, Mitch Jacobs, who founded On Deck Capital, says, hey, does anybody believe that the small business in their entirety who existed on January 1st, 2020 is now just so different than the same small business here on May 5th, 2021? The short answer is no, they're not. They're starved for resources, starved for time, haven't, really ultimately become terribly better educated. They got a lot less money in their pocket and they're a lot more worried.
And so, David, let me add one thing that, David, I think it was Steve, I think, could have said it. I think it depends on the industry. And I just wanted to underline that, which is why it's so complicated. Right. When I look at my own business, in the information business, our revenue's up about 20 to 30%. Now, you all know we're in similar businesses, but my world, the information economy, it's blossoming. But I know there's restaurants right across the street from me. I live in a little development. I'm not as wealthy as Barry to have like a whole empire, but I live in a small development and people have had to close. So it goes both ways.
Well, Barry, then that means the question comes to you, my friend, because you just got called out for your beautiful neighborhood that you lived in Arizona. So what is your question for a fellow panelist or the panel?
So I'm very much into business etiquette, and I'm wondering for the entire panel, when do they see the handshake coming back? Because the handshake has been such a big part of business. When you go out and speak at live events, are you going to shake people's hands, or is it going to be the fist bump or the elbow? I'm just curious what the other panelists think. And is business etiquette going to change with the handshake, or is that gone forever?
Great question.
Since it's
Anybody?
silent, I'll just answer that. I think it'll be politically driven. Politically, not in a mean way, but Barry, I really do think it depends on where you're at in the country. I've been in certain segments, and some of those, Barry, you and I, you know, because we and you talk in depth about these things. People have put out their hand to shake it. I've been surprised. Others, fist bump or not. So I think it'll be interesting, the divide of what audience you're at. If you're in Florida or if you're in New York City.
And what will you do, Ramon? Will you shake hands?
No, by default, like I would do for females, I will never initiate a hug. I will never initiate an embrace. I will smile, kind of like Middle East, maybe like this, you know, and wait to the option. So I will just smile until somebody else initiates something to me.
Got it.
I'm going to hug you, Barry.
It depends on where we are today is going to be really different a year from now.
True.
So I think a year from now, my sense is it's going to be a little more normal than we think it's going to be.
We hope. Yeah.
You know, the thing is, it
Okay.
has to be, because this is not the first first pandemic.
Right,
This is just our first pandemic.
right,
Think about that.
right. Because for the 1918 pandemic, it took 3 years for handshaking to come back, but eventually did come back. Melinda, you were muted, so I couldn't hear what you said.
So anybody else?
I was saying that, but people are acting like the world is opening back up in September. And I think it's really interesting because I hear people now calling and asking about live events this fall. And I'm still like shocked by that a little bit, because I have not been on an airplane since January of 2020. And I do not get my second vaccine until May 15th. And I just don't see myself doing it. Even in September, I don't know that I'm going to give a live keynote somewhere. I don't know that I'm doing that even still.
Melinda, the airplanes are mobbed. And I have to tell
They
you,
are
3
mobbed.
events in Las Vegas in the fourth quarter, you can't find a seat on an airplane anymore. It is
Nope.
just mobbed.
It is crazy. I hope I don't have to fly again soon. I won't fit in the seat. So
Yeah. I mean, here in Florida,
The
we
COVID 25.
by the
yeah,
by the
that was the
tourist
first
trade,
month.
and the airplanes have been packed. People come down. I don't know.
Well,
And no
Who's got the-
social
who's got the next
distancing on
question?
the
This one we
planes
got-
either, Melinda,
job on
which
this
is
one.
crazy.
Dave, I got a question for the panel.
okay.
So with us in this event are some of the great friends of small business, right? The different corporations who are attending this event over these few days really, as we all know, are great friends to small business, create tools for small business. What do you think they're going to need to do moving forward, right? This last year, everyone pivoted, the businesses pivoted, and the corporations pivoted, trying to help them. What do you think as we start to become in a post-pandemic life, the people watching this might need to do to think about to help their small business community and customers?
Ooh, great question.
I got
Anybody?
one word for you: acquisition. You better figure, because I mean, everybody's coming with a knapsack full of tools today. It ain't good enough to be just good at one thing anymore with small businesses, because these guys are budget tight. And I'm just seeing a lot of acquisitions about to take place.
I'm for sale. I'll put that up there, right there. Anyone, I'll send you a,
Yeah, package deal.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I would say,
Logo.
actually, Steve, I would jump in and say on that, I'm so glad you asked that question. What a great question. And what occurred to me is that the answer, what I would say to the brand selling to small business, is the same thing that I have been telling the actual small business owners. One of the things I've noticed up until the pandemic, and this is what I saw became a big marketing problem, is that everyone was talking about their product. Let me talk to you about my product, my software, whatever. And what I think is working right now is that if we could connect with people on an emotional level, how is this thing going to solve my problem? And especially from a B2B perspective for brands, instead of focusing on the software, focusing on, even the feature of the software, how about focusing on the fact that it's going to allow you to get your work done faster so that you can get back to your life, or whatever the real benefit is that the small business owner is looking for. So I see really going back to the original thing. Like, we think we got it, we didn't. Stop talking about the product and start talking about the contribution and the transformation it's going to make in people's lives.
Hear, hear.
I completely agree with you, Ivana. I think people are trying to buy things and have transformation happen. They don't want necessarily experiences. They want something to get better exponentially. And I do believe that you're exactly right. Everybody's got to stop talking about we're going to save you time and money, because everybody says that. So it means nothing. Stop saying that, right? Actually tell me how this is going to, actually save time and money. Don't just tell me it's going to save time and money. I really think that you're right. I think that big brands have to tweak their messaging. They have to be more empathetic, and they really have to understand what small businesses are going through and still going through, because I'm very concerned. My biggest concern right now is all of these things that were put on forbearance, or that, people were given more time to pay. Now those bills are due.
Oh, yeah.
And what are these people going to do if they didn't get a PPP loan, if they were turned down for an EIDL loan, if they didn't get one of these grants that were out here? What are these people going to do? Are they going to lose? Are they going to start taking houses from people like they did in 08, 09? Because that's what they did. So I feel like they just moved the needle down this way, but now we're down this way. So what are they going to do to help these people now? That's what my concern is.
It's a very good concern. Pamela, what's your question?
Yeah, well, if I actually want to piggyback on that, because I think Steve had a great question about it. What I see a lot for the SaaS companies in this space is a lot about partnership and ecosystem building. One of the case studies I used in the book, some folks might be familiar with Crossbeam, that facilitates a lot of partnerships between SaaS companies. And Bob Moore, who's the CEO, told the story of how, it flashed across his phone that Looker was purchased by Google for like $2.9 billion. And he had created RJ Metrics, which was actually had a 4-year head start to Looker in the same space. And he said, in retrospect, he realized he built a company where like your data goes to die. They tried to build like the complete end-to-end solution of everything you could possibly imagine. And, whereas Looker was like, hey, we're going to do our thing, and then we are going to partner with other folks in the ecosystem to do the other pieces. And that was really the inspiration for him to actually create Crossbeam now to facilitate collaboration, because he said now everything is about ecosystem partnership. And it may seem weird, like for large brands, for individual small business owners to be thinking about large brands like kind of people, but it does make a difference if you're like, hey, look at Verizon, like hanging out with, Zoho, and like they're pairing up with Intuit, and they're delivering solutions. It's actually the way that small business owners, the way that we understand the ecosystem of our business, because we never use just one product. And so the more that there is that collaboration, I think there's a lot of market leverage where, you're sharing audiences, you're working with folks like us in order to be connecting with small business owners, like Ivana is saying, to deliver an entire solution. Because what always bugs me is where, whether I as a business coach promise complete and total transformation only from me, that's impossible, right? Maybe John, like when it starts to get heavy duty into digital stuff, I'm like, talk to John, I can't do it all. And the same thing is true with software. No one software solution is going to solve your entire problem.
That's a great point. All right, so you blew your question with your answer. No, just kidding. Anita, what's your question?
Okay, so my question is first to Ivana and then to anyone to chime in. So Ivana, you mentioned about helping small businesses do marketing on, was it $17 a day? Which is like what, $5 grand a year or something?
It is $500 a month. If you actually GetApp just did a survey, Gartner's done surveys. I just saw somebody else did a survey, and something like, don't quote me, it's a big number, like 30%, maybe more, are spending under $1,000 a month. Most of them are at 500. That's
So
what it is.
So what are like the top 3 things that you should do if you're on a really tight budget like that? What are some things you focus on?
You took my question. That was my question.
Oh. All right. Well,
Wait a minute.
I'm going to
Is that 'cause
tell
you
you.
don't know?
No, I just was I wanted to hear what everybody else said. Because I talk about this all day long. I got to tell you people, the number one thing, Melinda's going to say a high five on this one. I know it. Build your email list, people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
Your email list. And not just build an email list. I mean, like, be intentional about it, right? Segment that email list. Be sure that you know who these customers are and who they belong to, and talk to them in an appropriate way. And I'm going to throw a challenge down on all of you people. Build your email list this year and aim to send them relevant, useful emails. Talk to these people. Now, nobody wants to talk to their customers. I don't know what that is, but that email list is the most important thing. I'm telling you, I have a client that through her email list, first of all, her email list gets more than a 50% open rate regularly.
Yeah.
The woman sold $1.7 million worth of coaching services in 3 days.
Was that Pamela?
From her email list. It was not Pamela. It is a training client that I have, and I had an email list. I let go of my email list, and I am now re-inspired to build that email list. But I'm saying that in all practical, and I'm saying that also for the big brands. You might have $5 million to spend, but I would urge you to think about that. Aim to get, what's your open rate? My brand and friends, my big brand friends, what is your open rate? What is your click-through rate? When you send an email, do you have 20 and 30% of the people on your email list purchasing what you're selling? Because if you don't, you're below the benchmark. So that's, if I had that $500, I would invest in building that email list.
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to take a step back because obviously, I mean, when you talk about the SMB space, you're talking about 30 million businesses. And so, I always say to people, look, you don't want an email list? Don't have one. You don't want social media? Don't use it. These are all means to an end.
Yes.
And I start with, what's the end? What's the end goal for your business? Where do you want to be on December 31st this year? And then I say, okay, that's your strategic goal. Let's create a GPS plan for your business. Okay. And that is from today to December 31st. Tell me everything that you need to do in order to achieve your goals. Now, the beauty of this is if you're successful in your business, you're going to attract attention. And a lot of people are going to come to you with ideas of partnerships and, hey, let's do this, let's do that. John Lawson, don't get any ideas about backing out. But and what a GPS plan does is it makes it very easy to say no. Because you look at the opportunity and you say, okay, does this get me closer to my strategic goal? And if the answer is yes, if the answer is no, then you say no. But if the answer is yes, this is something that will actually help me get closer, then you have a time management issue where you say, okay, well, what am I going to take out of my GPS plan in order to put this opportunity in? Because there are only so many hours in a day. Now, maybe I can hire more people, I can outsource it, but you really have to hold yourself accountable to this GPS plan. And so that email marketing that you're talking about, that email list, that's all part of the GPS plan.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
Can I just push back on your pushback?
Okay.
My pushback on your pushback is, as many of us, or at least I've learned from Clayton Mask, a CEO of a software company, and others is that out of the 30 million, I would dare say 5 million, 3 million are ready for Brian's GPS plan. The other, I think, from what I'm seeing, are just going to Google, figure it out. They're trying to make 50,000 a year, 60,000 a year. Now we can segment it out, restaurant or laundromat. So I just wanted to just add that when we talk about that number, I'm seeing more and more, and I know this, but more and more as I look even at my own Facebook groups, wow, out of the X number of people in a group, it seems like only a small slice are reading books, doing leadership, mentorship, things like that.
Yeah. All right. So it comes down to accountability. Now, are you going to hold yourself accountable to your goal? Because when something happens, when a customer leaves you, or when you didn't get that contract you thought you were going to get, okay, well, I have an excuse for this, but you don't adjust it. You don't say, okay, how am I going to replace that revenue? Listen, if you're not holding yourself accountable, this is not a business, it's a hobby. And that's the reality of it. I'm like the kind of the dark cloud sometimes when it comes to my clients, because I tell them stuff that they don't want to hear. Look, you have this plan and you play the what if game. I play the what if this happens? What if that happens? And these are obstacles that come across throughout the year. What if a pandemic hits? What if you lose your largest customer? What if you get hacked, right? And then you come up with answers to those questions. They all become part of your GPS plan. Ramon, I don't care if you are, I have a woman who just started her own real estate agency on Long Island, and she's doing a phenomenal job. She's absolutely crushing it. But I play the what if game with her all the time. What if this slows down? What if you lose this? And I force her to hold herself accountable to this plan that she created.
Let me
And
play the
then
what
we
if
could-
game.
What's that?
I want to play the what if game. What if I'm working 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, and I really just don't have time to be doing emails and social media? And so I'm just going to say
No.
this. When we talk about 31 million, absolutely, of small business owners, at least 10 to 15% of those owners are single businesses trying to
Oh,
get.
it's higher than that.
Higher
I
than
said
that.
Way
million.
higher
I
than
said
that.
Wait, you have to take a step back first before you jump into the deep end of the pool. All right, and starts trying to learn how to swim. You have to understand that there are the same amount of hours in every given day. Why are some companies wildly successful while so many companies struggle? It comes down to planning. Right, John, if you don't take the time to do something right, when are you going to find the time to do it over?
But
So-
Brian, it's not about time, right? We all say we don't have enough time. It's really about focus and attention.
Thank you.
Well, and listen, my next book is on change. It's called Change Masters. And people have a really hard
Mine is
time.
called.
Wait, Barry paid me to segue into that. I just want you to know that.
My next book is a
small
blank
business
journal.
owners. I work with small business owners all the time, Brian. We put together this incredible plan. We all agree they need to make a change. And guess what? Nothing happens because our biology works against us. People have a hard time with change. So in my book, Change Masters, coming out in the fall, I have a 20-step guaranteed process.
Hey, Barry, hold on one second. What did you say the name of the book is? When is it
Yeah,
coming out?
can you
Change
repeat that?
Masters,
And wait, where can I find it?
where books are sold.
Amazon.
There you go.
And maybe
Barry,
so
you-
to maybe kind of weave the thread for everybody, because thinking of our audience, right? It's so fun when we get into the nuts and bolts of our day-to-day business with our customers. There is a specific application, as you can see, the different lenses we've talked about that we have on business that's based on stage of business, background of business owners, right?
Right,
Like when I'm
right.
working with my old Escape from Cubicle Nation folks, people who have been professionally trained for decades in business, when they're starting a consulting business or something else, it's a totally different situation than when you might have somebody who, who doesn't have formal education, who is just starting their first endeavor, who might not have that. So there's this wonderful range, I think, for companies to understand, right? As they look at, I agree, having worked for 25 years now, kind of in the human side of business, there's so many human elements that we recognize now about behavior change that allows people to take action, to do things like planning that really do cross like all of these different segments. But it, each of the pieces of business advice or perspective that we have is probably true for the audiences that we serve. If we really got under the hood and we said, who are these audiences and what are their backgrounds and what are their individual needs, that's where you recognize how you do need different kinds of support. For companies partnering with, influencers, you need different kinds of connections with folks who are interfacing and have relationships with a different part of the market. Because
Pamela,
yes,
I just
there's
wanted
like
to-
not one solution.
You mentioned business stages, and I just wanted to pull 2 books, not my own, but even in my own small business. I have a very small business. I wasn't ready for traction, learning about teams and systems and processes. I think my business has grown because I'm even being more of a leader. I've called my good friend Anita Campbell at least more than once, crying to her or whining to her, give me your advice on this. Profit first. But my point is, I haven't always even been ready for that, because my mindset wasn't there. So Brian, you're right. We're just having fun here. But to the point of, I think what Barry and John are saying, we're just saying, and I think Pamela, you said it best, it's segmentation. For the clients, for the big brands listening, you have to segment. Some are more so, slide your credit card, $2 a month. Some are more so trying to sell a $500 a month program. 2 different mindsets for business.
So I just want to level set before we get to the next question. Nobody is saying that the very, very small business that makes less than $50,000 or less is somehow less important, less viable, less anything than the business that's making $1.5 million, correct? Nobody's saying that.
You mean
It's
on this
just-
panel?
Yes, on this panel.
I want to be clear
Nobody's
about
saying
that.
that, because I don't want anyone to misinterpret, I think Brian's being the ultimate business pragmatist. John, you made some great points. I know Melinda is biting her lip through saying yes, but, and there's a lot of variation in really what we think is the right solution for, and I, listen, guys, I really don't think there is an accurate count of small businesses in the United States. I cry bullshit on 30 million, and I also cry bullshit on 5 million. I don't think there's 5 million small businesses in the United States. I think those are the businesses that show up somehow in somebody's, research and reporting. But conservatively, there may be as many as 10 million solopreneurs or gig workers who
24 million.
Right,
24
are,
million,
you know,
because there's like 30
you
million
just
and
don't know.
then
But
Yeah.
but
But
we're
David,
all
I think-
saying they're
I
very,
think, David,
very
there's-
important, but it's going to take different solutions to really, frankly, get them all as successful as they potentially could be.
But David, just to that point, there are barometers. I don't want to keep this going. We can move on. But if you look at an EO, a Vistage, a YPO, very small segment. There's a certain amount. You look at those who come, which we all love, to a SCORE seminar, thousands asking the question, how do I start? How do I start? So that's just a barometer of when you get to the higher level, go to an Inc. 500 event. It's a small slice of upper crust of business owners who are thinking different than those who are saying, to John's point, maybe I'm riffing off of him, I have a full-time job. It's kind of hobby, full-time, not sure. Different mindset. Great people, just 2 different businesses. That's how I see it.
Let me ask the final question, because I think we'll dwell on it a bit. But it's an important question that came about from a conversation I was having James Kidd from Xero, who's the EVP of their global marketing. And he's from New Zealand, born and raised in New Zealand, and is New Zealand suffered, not as much as everybody did, but certainly suffered with the pandemic and the results of the pandemic. One of the things that he said out loud was, when I was asking him to describe the initiatives they had serving small business during this last year, he said, almost as a throw off, he said, and we really did focus a lot on mental wellness for our small business customers. And I about 30 seconds later, but wait, rewind. Mental wellness for your small business customers. I swear to God, guys, I like to believe I'm tuned in. I haven't heard actually anyone utter those words. That mental wellness of small business is a real and important issue that very few people seem, to me at least, to be talking about. Steve, this is your next column. But I think my question to you guys is, what is the state of mental health and wellness of small business right now in the U.S.?
I'll answer that first. I think it's the next pandemic. I think not only for small businesses, but for the entire country. I mean, we've had what 15, 16 months of a pandemic where our world was turned upside down. We've had 5 million women leave the workforce in the last year. We're at numbers now we haven't been at since 1988 because they've had to, in many cases, they had to choose between, having their kids homeschooling and paying attention to them or while trying to run a full-time job. And it's just been insanely difficult. And the pressures of that, I think that it's funny. I actually talked to an insurance executive. I said, what are you doing in terms of your mental health initiatives in the insurance coverage that you're offering to businesses? And they said, oh my God, he said, we are just scratching the surface on that about what we're going to be able to offer. But it is without a doubt on the minds of every American family, regardless of whether you're a business owner or not. And some of the mental illnesses have already shown themselves: depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar, significant events. And I think some are still coming. And we still have the whole reentry program. I mean, we talked about it earlier, about the fear of going back to work and doing that commute. That's the stuff that keeps people up at night. They're saying to themselves, I don't know if I can do it. So it's huge.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I want to give everybody a chance to answer this question. We've got about 6 or 7 minutes left. So Melinda, the question, what's the state of mental health for small business?
I think it's bleak. I think there are people out here walking around with PTSD. I definitely think we've got, parents, but let alone a woman that had to leave the workforce. What about the single parents out here, the single mom business owners out here? I am a single mom business owner. I mean, I'm grateful that my child is in 9th grade and not 2nd or 3rd grade, because I think for people with younger children that are just learning to read and do math, this has been hell for real. And people with multiple children at home, I mean, there's a lot of stuff people have had to deal with, and then try to figure out how to feed their family and keep their businesses going and keep the 1 or 2 little employees that they have paid. I mean, this is a lot of stress. And this is like, I have done more praying and more, focusing on that let go and let God stuff. I have really been doing a lot of that, because I feel like I've been under house arrest for 16 months, and other people have been willing to go on vacations and stuff. I'm too afraid. I have people in my family who died from COVID. So, my mentality is very different than other people, but I think it depends on how you internalize stuff. Like, do you have a way to get it up and get it out? Or are you holding on to it, fearful of the next thing that's coming in the mail or the next call you're going to get? I think there's a lot of fear out here, a lot of stress. And I think stress kills people more than anything else.
Agree with that. Anita.
Yeah, there's a lot of interest in, anything motivational, anything that, helps lift people's spirits very much. I think it's, I think it's a very real issue, the one of, depression. And, I thought of a great book title. Unfortunately, somebody else already wrote the book, and it's called The Loneliness of the Small Business Owner. And I think a lot of vendors, maybe large companies, don't realize how alone it is to be a small business owner. I spent time in the corporate world, and you had someone you could talk to about everything, some other department who could help you with everything. And there was so much support. In a small business, you have no one to talk to. You have employees, but there are things you can't talk to your employees about. And so, you're really very alone. That's the best word that I can say about it. You are alone. And I think if companies can be there to partner and help the business owner not feel so alone, that alone is huge.
Agreed. John, from your perspective.
The fact is, running a small business in and of itself is a very stressful thing, just in general. And stress is a huge problem for small business owners. And I really think there's no escaping the fact that that there's a lot of stress here. But also, I think some of us cover over that with the fact that we're so busy, or we keep busy to not have to deal with these issues that are mental health related. Then all of a sudden you have this blow up issue and you're just not able to put everything back in. So it's something that needs to be taken seriously. I love what Anita said about being alone. The fact is, I got into social media because of the fact that I felt so alone in my small business when I was starting. I missed that interaction at the water cooler kind of thing or at the coffee pot. And I needed some outlet. So if nothing else, you guys start trying to get together with others locally once you get the shots and all that, you know what I'm saying? But look for some support from other business owners that understand what you're going through, because your family don't get it, your friends won't get it, but other business owners actually understand what you're going through. I get it. Call me. My new book is.
My new book is called Call Me.
Call Me. I guess I'm gonna be a contrarian, you guys. I run a Twitter chat twice a week. We reach about, I don't know, 2 million small business owners a week. Most of them are consultants, freelancers, the solopreneurs. And yes, everything that everyone has said is there, but I'm going to say that I continue to see what I would call this. There is stress, there is depression, there is all of that. And on top of that is this unbridled hope and enthusiasm and an eye toward creation and possibility and what's going to happen next. And that continues to inspire me day in and day out. I can't believe I'm talking about it now, because when I read a study and then they say, oh, they're so optimistic. And I'm like, what do they have to be optimistic about? Oh my God. But you know what? In spite of everything that we've talked about, I think through the vein of small business is the hope and enthusiasm and optimism that they will figure it out and survive.
Steve.
So I'm going to piggyback on what Ivana just said, and that is, and I think the good news is the very nature of an entrepreneur, of a small business owner, is optimistic, right? You have to be optimistic if you're going to leave the corporate world and go start a business and not have benefits and not get a paycheck every two weeks. I mean, it's just how we are wired, or we wouldn't be doing what we do. And I do think there is another great pivot right in front of us right now. And that is, we all had to go through a pivot a year ago. All our small business customers did, compatriots, whatever. We are now going into this post-COVID world, and there's going to be another pivot. And I think the best thing that the brands who are watching this can do is to take advantage of the optimistic nature of the small business person and help them manage the next phase, because we're going to need help doing that as well. So yeah, it's been hard, but hopeful. I think we're heading in the right direction, and we can, to the extent someone can help our tribe get there, you're going to hit a home run.
Pamela.
Yeah, I do see it. And I think when we look at what's happened, we've just been talking about the pandemic, but all of us have lived through the experience. It's also massive social upheaval. We've had, massive civil rights violations. We've had huge political strife that has often created fracturing within communities, like on soccer fields, within families. That we've really experienced, from a human relation perspective, this combination of isolation, and then based on people's different lived experience, sometimes huge amounts of additional stress, right? Based on what it is that's happening. So to me, when I think about what we can do to assist it, first of all, is to normalize the fact that mental health is a huge, important part of running a business. And it is difficult in general, but also recognizing, when we look at our market and our different customers, that people, based on their own lived experience, how the world relates to them, right? And their own experience, what they bring to it, that they can have a different experience. And so to normalize the fact that there's not any one solution, sort of that buckle up, buttercup, you can do it, just keep grinding and moving forward, is actually very violent, for somebody who is experiencing sometimes a true like fear for their life or for loved ones, or like Melinda was saying, people who have lost or in the grieving and mourning state who have lost dear relatives, to COVID. And so to normalize it, I think is really important. And then, I'm always sort of, the more we can stop that like hustle, no offense, Ramon, smart hustle. We can have smart hustle, but like that, just grind it out, build an empire, like trying to be these, solo people, and really talk about the fact that we all need each other. Like, I don't have all the answers. I call Melinda when I need to rant on something. If I'm stuck, I can reach out to Ramon. That is normal. And when all of us, including companies, can model that, I think it helps our small business owners say like, oh, I guess I don't have to have it all figured out. I'll tell a lot of my clients, like, you think that New York Times bestselling author with all the fancy millions of dollars has it all figured out. Believe me, I've seen under the hood of people from every background you can imagine. Everybody struggles, and they're like, oh, really? It's not just me. I'm not just a screw up. So I think a lot of that normalization is important, but there definitely are people who are suffering deeper than others based on their lived experience.
Barry, you write a lot about reimagining business. Is this a moment of reimagination for a lot of small business? Is that part of their mental health equation?
I think it is. I mean, I agree with Brian that I really think it could be the next pandemic unless we're careful. I mean, my friends who are psychiatrists and psychologists, you can't get an appointment. Their practices are full. Believe me, I've tried. You can't get in to see them. And I think that we call them out to say, this is an issue that's going on. People will reach out if they need help instead of just falling into that pit. The pandemic has been very, very difficult. This was followed by, as Pamela was saying, 4 years of, I think, a big political fracture in this country that was difficult. And I think now people are having a hard time doing what John was talking about, which is re-entry from COVID. I know a lot of friends, I've had the vaccine and they've had the vaccine. I said, well, let's get together. Let's go out to the restaurant for dinner. And they say, well, I'm still afraid. And I said, well, why'd you get the vaccine then? And so people are still having a hard time doing the re-entry. So I think we call out that it's a stressful time. We're all in this together. Please reach out, talk to friends, talk to other business owners. You're not alone. I think that might help another pandemic that could be coming, the way Brian said.
And that really is a reimagining of our business relationships, right? We're not supposed to talk about that kind of stuff within our business relationships. Well, damn it, we better. Ramon, bring it home. You've written about, you actually were one of the first people to write about and kind of notice the depression as being real. As you've ruminated on this, because I know you have, what do you think is the answer? How do we basically help our brethren basically get better?
I think the best thing that we can do, 3, 6, 9, 10, I'm not as good as math like John is. I think the best that the 10 of us can do here is just to be vulnerable like we're doing it. And not a vulnerable like, I'm being vulnerable today, I'm going to write a vulnerable post tomorrow. That's not vulnerable. But I mean, just as Barry said so eloquently, actually, he said it very well, just for us all to admit, who are leaders, as it were, influencers, just to admit that we don't have it figured out. Listen, I'm shamelessly saying books I read and things I have to do I'm trying to be debt free. I'm trying to build my team better. So I think that's the best thing we can do, is to share with small businesses the same way you're down, the same way you cry, the same way you have your issues. We have the same issues. We haven't arrived, and we have to lean on each other. Shout out to my friend Emilio, who's watching as well. So thanks, David.
Guys, just absolutely fabulous. You give voice to, first of all, to the many that you speak to, but you also give voice from your heart and from your soul. I appreciate the spirit you brought to this. I really appreciate the last 10 minutes because as Brian wrote, vulnerability is the new invincibility. You're damn right it is, it really is. And if we can take what we learned as the kids cried in the background and the dog crossed in front of the screen and and I didn't get to shave this morning because I was trying to homeschool my kids, and all the other stuff that, that we've been through, that vulnerability, frankly, revealed even to the hardest asses amongst us. I love Eric Spadafora, who's the head of sales for Verizon Business, because Eric is about as buttoned up and hard ass a sales leader as you could get. And I'm willing to tell you, 30 days into this, that was a humbled man who was sitting there in his chair realizing that everything that he had built his success on was no longer really part of his toolkit. And he really changed. And he has become a completely reimagined leader. So I appreciate you guys talking about all of these different things and kind of setting the stage for all of us to reimagine how we help small businesses, how we help each other. Virtual hug to every single one of you. I can hardly wait to physically see you all again. Hopefully this October. Yes, we are talking about doing a live event this October.
Nice.
Melinda's like, I'll drive
there.
you, sweet cheeks. I will
Yeah.
drive you. I will come to Philadelphia and drive you to Chicago. You are coming. You guys are terrific. Thank you so much for doing this.